It's like standing at the edge of everything. There's this wall, but it's not made of brick or stone, obviously. It's light, shimmering, pearlescent light. And it feels impossibly ancient, but also brand new. Like the first moment of creation. It pulses. Not like a heartbeat, more like a deep, slow breath that's happening everywhere at once. And the colors, oh man, there are colors in here I don't have names for. Deep amethyst, like the richest velvet you can imagine, but it's not flat. It's got this liquid quality, like it's flowing. And then streaks of gold, pure liquid gold, not like the metal, but brighter, warmer. It's not just seeing the colors, though, it's feeling them. The light feels like warm honey being poured over my skin. It seeps into you, it makes you whole. There's this silence, but it's not an empty silence. It's a profound, resonant quiet. It hums. It's alive. It feels pregnant with potential, with everything that ever was and ever will be. And somehow it's the most comforting thing I've ever experienced. It's the sound of peace. It's the sound of belonging. And there's this feeling. It's not happiness exactly, or joy. It's bigger than that. It's this deep, all-consuming acceptance. Like every mistake I ever made, every regret, every moment of shame or self-doubt, it's all just gone, washed away. It's like being seen, truly seen, and loved unconditionally for exactly who you are, flaws and all. It's terrifyingly beautiful. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't a color I've ever seen. It was more like color as a feeling, as a state of being. Like if you could taste understanding or smell forgiveness, that's what this is. It's pure understanding, pure grace. I tried to reach out, to touch it, and my hand, it just kind of passed through. Not like it wasn't there, but like the light was more real than my hand. It didn't resist, it welcomed. And then I was in the hospital. My name is Isabella Rossi, but everyone calls me Izzy. I'm 32. I work as a marine welder down at Newport News Shipbuilding. It's honest work, hard work. You get up before the sun, steel-toed boots on by 5 a.m., coffee as black and bitter as my mood some mornings. My mind, it's always been a racetrack, always pushing, always needing to be perfect. One tiny flaw, one misplaced weld, and the whole thing could be compromised. That's how I saw everything, really. Life, my welding, me, constant vigilance against imperfection. Raised Catholic, sure, went to church every Sunday until I was about 18. But after that, it just faded. Didn't believe in anything I couldn't touch, couldn't see, couldn't fix. And my older brother, Marco, we haven't spoken in years. Not really. A few clipped emails, a forced holiday call once in a blue moon. It's a complicated situation. A whole lot of unspoken stuff. Just last Tuesday, I was eating my usual lukewarm microwave oatmeal, staring out at the gray, spitting rain. Same old drizzle, same old shipyard grit settling on everything. I was thinking about a particular weld I'd done on a new hull, a section that just didn't feel right. It was bugging me, this tiny imperfection that nobody else would even notice, but it was a knot in my stomach. You know? That feeling that you're about to fail, even when you're succeeding, that was my baseline. Always chasing that perfect, impossible standard. Even with family, with Marco, I always felt like I was falling short. Or he was, or we both were. It's this heavy cloak you wear. I remember just the day before, actually, Saturday. I was walking home, the air smelling like salt and diesel. I'd bought a ridiculously overpriced coffee at that little place near the docks, the one with the chipped paint. And as I was fumbling for my keys, I dropped my wallet. Coins scattering everywhere, rolling into the cracks in the sidewalk. Just a small thing, completely insignificant. But I remember the flash of frustration, the feeling of being clumsy, of not being able to do something as simple as hold on to my own belongings. That's how it was. Always something to fix, something to worry about. Little things, big things. The constant hum of anxiety beneath the surface. It's easy to get lost in that, to let it define you, to think that's all there is. I was thinking about how my wristwatch had been acting funny the week before. Just randomly stopping. I'd check it, shake it, and it would start up again. Annoying. I figured the battery was on its way out, or maybe the damp sea air was messing with the mechanism. It was one of those small, irritating things that I usually just file away to deal with later. The kind of thing that's just there, like a loose thread you keep meaning to snip. I remember specifically thinking, that's weird. Must be old. I just chalked it up to being worn out myself. Probably not getting enough sleep. My mind was already running at a million miles an hour with work, with everything. It's funny, though. Looking back, it's like my watch was trying to tell me something, trying to slow things down, but I was too busy, too myself, to notice. There was also this weird dream I had the night before the accident. It wasn't a nightmare, not really, more like a feeling. I was standing on this incredibly high ledge, like the top of a building, and the wind was whipping around me, but it didn't feel cold. It felt significant, like a warning, but a gentle one. I could see the whole shipyard laid out below me, all these dark shapes and blinking lights against the stormy sky. And for a second, just a fleeting second, I felt this overwhelming urge to just step off. Not in a suicidal way, not at all. It was more like a surrender. Like the world was asking me to let go of all the pressure, all the trying. But I shook my head, dismissed it as just stress, just my brain overthinking things. I woke up with that feeling still clinging to me, a faint hum of unease that I quickly drowned out with my usual morning rush. I thought I was just tired. That was my go-to for everything that felt even a little bit off. Just tired, Izzy. Push through. Did you have any sense, looking back, that something was coming? It's strange, isn't it? When you're in the thick of it, the small things that might be red flags just blend into the background noise. It's like trying to hear a whisper in a hurricane. My watch stopping, that dream, they were just glitches in the system. Things to be ignored, things to be fixed later. I was so focused on the welds, on the next deadline, on the constant pressure to be perfect, that I completely missed the universe trying to tap me on the shoulder. It's like I was so determined to stay upright, to keep moving forward, that I didn't see the ground shifting beneath my feet. I thought I was just tired. Really, that's all I told myself. Just a bit run down. Nothing a good night's sleep wouldn't fix. I had no idea how fundamentally wrong I was. It was October 17th, 2023. Late afternoon. Just a regular Tuesday at the Newport News shipbuilding yard. The sky was this heavy, bruised gray, and there was that fine, misty drizzle that just seeps into everything. You know the kind. Makes the metal slick and everything smell like wet concrete and salt. I was up high, probably close to 80 feet, working on a weld. Just finishing up a section, actually. That last bead, making sure it was perfect. That's always the part I focused on, you know? The final touch, making sure it was smooth, no imperfections. My hands were steady, like they always were. That's what I was good at. Reliable. I remember the hum of the shipyard, that constant thrum of machinery. Cranes groaning, sparks spitting from somewhere else on the hull, the distant clang of hammers, and then this weird stillness. The drizzle seemed to pause, and the air got thick, impossibly heavy, like the whole atmosphere decided to press down on me. It wasn't just the weight of the scaffolding or the tools, it was me. I felt like I was being crushed from the inside out. My lungs burned, not from smoke, but from this gritty dust that suddenly filled the air, thick and choking. It was concrete, I think. I remember trying to gasp, trying to suck in air, but all I got was that powdery sting. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't a sudden jolt, more like a slow, terrifying realization. My body was failing, not just my lungs, but everything. A profound weakness spread through me, like my bones were turning to jelly. I remember looking down and the ground seemed to stretch, to warp. The other guys, I saw them. They were shouting, their faces a blur of panic, but the sound was muffled, distorted, like it was coming through thick glass. They were pointing, running, but it all felt so distant. My hands, the ones that were always so sure, felt foreign, disconnected. The second I knew I was dying, it was when the sensation of falling began. It wasn't the physical plummet, not yet. It was more like an internal collapse, a giving way. The world tilted, and I understood, with a certainty that chilled me to the core, that this was it. My life was just unraveling. And then the last sensation before everything went dark, it was a sound, a single high-pitched whine, like a faulty alarm. It cut through the muffled chaos, sharp and piercing. And then, nothing. Just a sudden, absolute cessation of all sensation. The weight vanished, the dust cleared, the sound stopped, everything just stopped. Later, when they revived me, when I was able to process what happened, they told me I was clinically dead for about 5 minutes and 15 seconds. 5 minutes and 15 seconds where my heart wasn't beating, where my brain wasn't getting oxygen. They said the monitors flatlined, 5 minutes and 15 seconds. It's a funny thing, that number. It just sits there, clinical, precise, like it could ever capture what it felt like to not be. And then it wasn't darkness, it wasn't even a lack of light, it was a doorway. Or no, that's not quite right either. It felt more like I had just exhaled my entire being, like every atom of me, every memory, every fear, every unfinished weld just dissolved and flowed out, not into nothingness, but into something else. It was like being a drop of water, and suddenly you're not a drop anymore. You're the entire ocean. But even that's too simple. It wasn't a dissolution. It was an expansion. Imagine being crammed into a tiny box your whole life, and then suddenly that box just isn't there. You're still you, but you're also everything. It's like a metaphor trying to describe a color that doesn't exist on our spectrum. That's the best I can do. The first thing that hit me wasn't sight or sound or even touch. It was silence, but it wasn't the absence of sound. It was a silence that vibrated, like a perfectly tuned chord held for eternity. It was so profound, so utterly complete that it felt alive. It hummed with potential, like the moment before a storm breaks, but without any of the tension. And with that silence came a sense of weightlessness. Not just physical. My whole existence felt lightened. The burden of being Izzy Rossi, marine welder, chronic perfectionist, estranged sister, just lifted. Like shedding a skin I didn't even realize I was wearing. And the light. Oh God, the light. It was like standing at the edge of everything, a shimmering, pearlescent wall. It wasn't like sunlight or moonlight or any light I'd ever known. It was both diffused and incredibly intense, all at once. The dominant colors were this deep, resonant amethyst, like the richest velvet you could imagine, and this liquid gold, flowing and alive. And the light, it felt like warm honey. Not sticky, not heavy, but just this comforting, pervasive warmth that seeped into every part of my being. It was perfectly neutral, too. No heat, no chill, just perfect. It was a temperature that existed outside of temperature. Does that make sense? It was like the feeling of pure understanding, but translated into a sensory experience. And then I knew I wasn't alone. There wasn't a figure, not a person in the traditional sense. It was more of a presence. A profound, resonant knowing. It felt like my brother, Marco. I felt him. It wasn't a visual thing, not at all. It was a feeling of him, so raw and so familiar, it made my non-existent heart ache. There was this specific sensation, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor that I always associated with him when he was trying to hide something or when he was really struggling. It was that same tremor, that same hidden vulnerability. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And the message, it wasn't spoken. It wasn't a voice in my ear. It was more like a download, a direct infusion of knowing. It bypassed all my thought processes, all my defenses, and just settled. It was like understanding a complex equation instantly, without needing to see the steps. The message was this: your brother's pain wasn't a rejection of you. It was his own struggle. He saw your strength, and it both inspired and intimidated him. He loves you more than you know, even if he could never show it. Izzy, can you say that message out loud? Just the words themselves? Your brother's pain wasn't a rejection of you. It was his own struggle. He saw your strength, and it both inspired and intimidated him. He loves you more than you know, even if he could never show it. It was everything. It was the answer to a question I'd been carrying around for years, a question I hadn't even fully articulated. This deep, all-consuming acceptance washed over me. It was like every wrong turn, every harsh word, every silent treatment, every moment of misunderstanding between Marco and me was suddenly recontextualized. It wasn't about blame. It was about two people just doing their best or failing to do their best in their own separate universes of pain. The sheer weight of that realization, it was a relief. I understood that his distance wasn't about me being not good enough. It was about him being too broken to connect. And in that moment, in that light, with that presence, I felt a profound sense of peace. It wasn't about forgiveness, not in the way I understood it before. It was about seeing the truth, the messy, complicated truth. And I saw something else too, a tiny, insignificant moment from my childhood. I was maybe 7, and Marco was 10. He'd just gotten his first real bike, a gleaming red Schwinn. He was so proud. I wanted to ride it, just a little spin around the block. He looked at me. this flicker of something in his eyes, not anger, not annoyance, but fear. He shook his head, mumbled something about it being too fast, and just walked away, pushing the bike. I remember feeling this sting of rejection, this familiar sense of being on the outside looking in. But now, seeing it from that perspective, from his perspective, illuminated by that amethyst and gold light, I saw the fear. Not of me damaging the bike, but of me falling, of me getting hurt. He couldn't articulate it, couldn't protect me in a way that felt like connection, so he retreated. It was so small, so seemingly insignificant, but it was everything. It was the root of so much of our disconnect. And it was okay. It was just human. And then there was a tug, a gentle, insistent pull, like a tide drawing me back. And then there was a tug, a gentle, insistent pull, like a tide drawing me back. It wasn't a violent yank, not at first. It was more like being held and then slowly, deliberately being released. And the release, it felt like a mistake, like I was being unplugged from something that was finally making sense. My entire being screamed, not with pain, but with a deep primal objection. No, not yet. I'm not ready to leave this. Leave the peace, leave the understanding, leave the honey-warm light. But the pull intensified. It became insistent, like a strong undertow. And with it came a wave of regret? No, not regret. It was more like a visceral understanding of what I was leaving behind, the potential of that silence, the echo of that acceptance. And, I'm not going to lie, a flicker of thought about Marco, about seeing that fear in his eyes, understanding it, and knowing that this experience, this impossible place, was showing me how to actually fix things with him, how to bridge that chasm. That was a powerful draw, a connection I finally understood and desperately wanted to explore. And then the tug became a rip. It was like being sucked backward through a straw, but the straw was made of pure, unadulterated sensation. The warmth vanished. The neutral temperature was replaced by something brutally, shockingly cold. And the silence? Oh, it shattered. It imploded with a deafening roar that was both internal and external. It was like my entire body was being reassembled, piece by agonizing piece, and every single weld was screaming. The weight. That's the first thing that really hit me. Impossibly heavy. I'd felt heavy before when I was falling, that crushing weight of gravity winning. But this was different. This was the weight of being in a body, the weight of flesh and bone and organs that suddenly felt like lead. It was a physical manifestation of the separation I was experiencing. And the cold. It wasn't just outside temperature, it was a cold that seeped into my very marrow. It was the absence of that honey-warm light, the absence of that perfect neutrality. My eyes snapped open, or I think they did. It felt more like they were being forced open, assaulted by everything. The first thing I saw, or rather, the first thing I registered, was a blinding, fluorescent white light. Not the soft, pearlescent glow from before. This was harsh, cruel. It bounced off sterile surfaces, making the room swim, and the sounds, oh my God, the sounds, beeping, whirring, shouting. It was a cacophony that clawed at my ears, 1,000 times louder than any sound I'd ever experienced. It was overwhelming. Too much. And then a face, blurry at first, then sharpening into a frantic, panicked expression. My coworker, Sarah. Her face, usually so composed, was etched with relief and something else. Fear. She was shaking her head, mumbling, "Izzy, oh my God, Izzy, you're back. Don't move, the paramedics are here." Her voice. It was so loud, so distorted. The world felt broken. Too bright, too loud, too heavy, and too separate. Everyone and everything was an island, isolated by the sheer, overwhelming physicality of it all. It was like I'd been living in a symphony and was suddenly thrust into a room where everyone was banging pots and pans. It was so jarring, so absurdly unharmonious. And then I looked down at my wrist, my watch. It had stopped. Again. For the third time this week. Seriously? My watch? Of all the things to be wrong, it's the damn watch. It was a blur, honestly. The hospital stay. Just a few days, I think. They kept me for observation, mostly. Said I was lucky. Lucky? Yeah, right. Sarah was there, mostly. And a couple of the guys from the crew. They kept asking if I remembered anything. I just shook my head. What was I supposed to say? Yeah, I was bathed in amethyst and gold, felt like warm honey, and had a profound conversation with something that told me my brother loves me. They'd have strapped me down for real. The first real conversation? With my mom. She came to see me, looking like she'd aged 10 years. She kept holding my hand, rubbing it like she was trying to absorb my pain. I just looked at her and said, "Ma, I need to talk to Marco." That's it. That's all I said. She looked confused, then sad. Marco, my brother, the one I hadn't spoken to in, 5 years? 6? Ever since that fight. He always saw me as the screw-up, the one who couldn't measure up. And I let him. I built my whole life around proving him wrong. Every weld, every extra hour, every stupid, impossible standard I set for myself. It was all for him, in a twisted way. So the real change, the one that hit me like a ton of bricks, happened a few weeks later. I was at home, trying to get back into the swing of things. My toolbox was still in the corner, untouched. My rig was hanging there, a reminder of the fall. I was trying to clean up, just sort of tidying the apartment, when I found this old photo album buried deep in a closet. And there he was, Marco, younger, with that stupid grin he used to have, and me, a little kid, clinging to his arm. I remember that day, he'd taken me to the pier, taught me how to skip stones. He was so patient, so present. I'd always remembered him as the guy who yelled at me, the one who dismissed me. But looking at that picture, seeing the genuine affection in his eyes, it was like a dam broke. And then the memory hit me, the message. He loves you more than you know. I sat there and I cried. Not for me, not for the pain I'd gone through. I cried for him, for his struggle, for the years we'd lost. It was like seeing him clearly for the first time in a decade. The perfectionist in me, the one who always had to be in control, had to be right, had to be the best, that part of me just deflated. It just wasn't important anymore. The pressure was gone. The need to prove anything was gone. So I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I dialed his number, the one I hadn't called since forever. It rang and rang. And just when I was about to hang up, thinking, "See, Izzy? Told you he wouldn't answer," he picked up. "Yeah?" he answered, his voice rough like he'd been sleeping. And I just said, "Marco, it's Izzy." Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then a hesitant, "Izzy? Is that really you?" "Yeah, Marco, it's me." What do you want?" he asked. His voice was so guarded, like he was expecting another fight. And I just said, "I want to talk. Can we just talk?" He didn't believe me. Not at first. He'd heard it all before, right? The apologies, the excuses. He thought it was a trick. When I suggested meeting up, he was suspicious. "What's the catch, Izzy?" he finally asked. I just told him, "No catch, Marco. Just you." He finally agreed. A tentative meeting at a neutral coffee shop downtown. He spent the first 20 minutes looking at me like I was an alien, like he was waiting for me to sprout wings or demand money. But when I didn't get defensive, when I didn't try to justify anything, when I just started talking, really talking about my experience and about how I finally understood his pain, how it wasn't about me at all, something shifted. He started to listen, really listen. He even teared up a little. He confessed how hard it had been for him, watching me push myself so hard, feeling like he could never be good enough for me, and me never seeing him for who he was. It was raw, messy, but it was real, and it was the first time we'd ever truly communicated. We're still working on it, mind you. It's not all hugs and rainbows. There are still awkward silences. But he calls. He asks how I'm doing, and I ask about him. The after effect? Oh yeah, that's still a thing. My watch. It stopped. Again. Third time this week. I'm not even wearing a fancy one, just a cheap Timex. It'll be ticking along perfectly fine, then poof, dead, completely dead. It's like I'm out of sync with something, or maybe the world is out of sync with me now. It's annoying as hell, but what can you do? I've learned to just carry my phone, or ask someone the time. It's a small thing, but it's a constant reminder, a little glitch in the matrix of my everyday life. Here's the thing, though. It's not just about the watch. It's about the small things. Like before the accident, I used to meticulously plan every single second of my day. Every meal, every workout, every conversation. Now, I'll be walking down the street and I'll just stop. I'll notice the way the light hits a building or the sound of kids laughing in a park. And I'll just stand there for a minute, just being. Not trying to be perfect, not trying to achieve anything, just existing, taking it in. It's a luxury I never knew I had, a quiet kind of freedom, like breathing for the first time. I'm sitting on my porch, the same one where I used to sit and plan out my next impossible goal. The sun is setting, painting the sky in colors in Ugraimai used to only see in my head. A robin lands on the railing, chirps a quick, bright note, and then flies away. I don't time it, I don't analyze it, I just watch it go.